All right, Andrew, thank you very much. Let's bring in the rest of our panel on this. We got Dominic Carter, political journalist, author, Bill O'Reilly, Republican consultant, executive vice president, NLO Strategies, and also columnist at Newsday, and Andrew. And Bill, it seems on the outside, and you heard Peter King say it, Republicans have the wings at their back. They get a chance, I think, to take the Senate back next year. I think even add more House seats. And at least maybe give themselves a chance in 2016. This strategy, I'm trying to find anybody who thinks it's going to work. God forbid they're successful, like Andrew was saying, there's going to be a backlash like we haven't seen. And if they're not successful, they just prove how inept they are internally, where they're just, like he said, doing a circular firing squad. For Republicans with arguably a strong position right now and a marginalized president, they're doing everything in their power, I'm thinking objectively, to hurt themselves.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anyone expects the government actually to shut down. I think there's a lot of brinksmanship going on here. From what I understand, the Republican plan is that this will now go to the Senate. They'll strip out the health care language, send it back to the House. My understanding is that the House will then pass it with the Obamacare language stripped out, but then attach the Obamacare language to the debt ceiling, which is a better argument for them.
It pushes back 2 weeks.
It pushes back by 2 weeks.
We have the same argument 2 weeks later.
Exactly, and you don't close the government. You push that off, and you get that done.
But to me, it just confirms suspicions out there that you got people that aren't ready for prime time, that you can't trust to run a candy store, let alone the government.
Yeah.
It just has a level of unseriousness about it, and it's a really easy soundbite for anybody else to say, which is, okay, you don't like Obamacare, and the majority of the American public poll doesn't, but by a much wider margin, they don't like what the GOP is doing here. Now, I felt bad for John Boehner in the beginning because he couldn't herd cats. At some point, he's got to take ownership of this. Either he stands up to these guys, or he goes along to get along. But either way, it's on him now.
Yeah, I don't think Boehner lets this go to a shutdown of government. I don't think he does it. I was surprised, not surprised, but I was. It was notable to see how far Pete King went out there today on
And he
Ted
wasn't
Cruz.
alone. I mean, we didn't have time to play all the quotes.
Yeah, there are other
a lot
quotes.
of other folks who went after Ted Cruz and others.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a real division going on in the Senate and to some extent in the House, but more in the Senate now. I mean, John McCain's been out there on it. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting conversation. But you have different parts of the country that feel differently about things, and you've got people that are freaked out about Obamacare and about the debt and the rest of it in the South and in the West, and these guys are playing to their constituents. Up in the Northeast, that doesn't play. I mean, we're looking for more stability.
But you know what? All of us, even as kids, know every game has rules. And you don't get to make up your own rules. And I think for people who don't even follow this, Dominic, they say, wait a second. Didn't these guys vote on this? Now, you don't like the vote, but it's a vote. And it passed. President signs it. The Supreme Court, if you want a cherry on top, they also went through it and validated the thing. So it's gone through our chambers of government here. You can't just say, no, never mind. I'm not going to like this law, and if you don't do it, I'm going to be a political arsonist here and threaten to shut everything down if I don't get my way. I don't think that plays if you're trying to win an election or to brand yourself as a party as a better alternative. And again, I don't have a dog in this fight. It just doesn't make any sense to me what they're doing.
Not only that, Richard. Okay, so we're going to take a president's signature achievement and say, no, we're not playing that game anymore. We're going to take our marbles and go home. And if you don't play it the way we want to play it, government shut down. Okay, Dominic, you and those Democrats, you guys, you're being partisan. Well, you mentioned McCain. He's criticizing them. You mentioned Peter King. Fellow Republicans are saying
we got 40, 50
that
other
these
ones
guys
just
are
as loud
nuts.
as them.
But Richard, let me just throw this out here, just one thing. And I want to ask you this question. When is this president at his best? When is he at his best?
When he's underestimated.
When he's underestimated, and when he does what? When he's out there in full campaign mode.
He is again.
So now he's on the ropes with Syria. He's on the ropes domestically.
Yep.
And you make it so he can go out there to middle America today and full campaign mode and at Ford, and the American people are behind him again.
But if John Boehner ends up, out of all these negotiations, these back and forth, and we're watching the sausage being made now, if he ends up negotiating in order to raise that debt ceiling, negotiating a 1-year delay on Obamacare for the public, it's already been done for business, that's a win. That's a win.
Now, Bill, separate yourself and put yourself as counsel here. I mean, you help people when they're trying to figure out their next move here. If you're the president, as Dominic said, he's got a heap load of problems, some of which of his own making, okay, or some of which they inherited and didn't do it right. The Republicans have given you the biggest gift possible. They are promising. People know D.C. screwed up. They don't know the names, but they know the basic. They can attach dysfunction to it, even if you don't follow the stuff like we do. But if they say, wait a second, we're going to shut it down, people say, hold on a second. The last time they did this, didn't they talk about credit rating go down? Oh, yeah. And my 401k, now you're screwing with my savings because all of a sudden the value of the market's going to go down, and who do I blame? I'm going to go look at Republicans. They couldn't, if the president if he just shuts up, he wins. And moreover, if he can convince, like Dominic says, wait a minute, you're hurting this country. You might want to hurt me, fine, but you're hurting the country in the process. If he capitulates on this, then he doesn't have a scintilla of a spine. What's his incentive to go back off another year on Obamacare's implementation?
Well, I think because people hate it. I mean, people aren't ready for Obamacare.
But they hate what the Republicans are doing more, though.
They do. I mean, Obamacare is now 20,000 pages. I mean, when it was criticized initially for being 1/7 that size, it's 20,000 pages now. I mean, the thing is really complicated, and I think they need some time to work it out. But I think with the Republicans, I disagree with the strategy on the shutdown. I think that's a boneheaded move, and I don't think it helps Republicans in moderate districts whatsoever.
But isn't this the best thing for even John Boehner now? Now, everybody says he's in a box, but this is his moment. He's got other Republicans that can give him cover for him to say, wait a minute, I don't like this. I voted against this plan, but this is America, and elections, not only elections, but votes have consequences. We wouldn't want a Democrat to turn around and say, with a Republican president passes something, we're going to shut this all down if we don't get our way. That's not who we are as a party. So if you're going to take my speakership away because I'm going to stand up to say this is wrong for our party, then do it. He will be empowered the next day. But at some point, where's his line, Bill?
Yeah, but they'll be talking about two subjects that they want to talk about, and that's Obamacare and its flaws, and the debt, which is now $17 trillion. I saw on the intro it was 14. You can't look at that clock without it flipping $3 trillion. I mean, that footage is probably just a year or two old. They want to be talking about debt, and they want to be talking about Obamacare. And I think they win when they do that. They do not want to be talking about a shutdown. I agree with you. I think that's not the right strategy to go in. But the country's going to be talking a lot about the two issues that help Republicans a lot going into 16.
So, Andrew, your
14.
bet, who blinks, the GOP or the president?
I think the GOP blinks. I think they'll pass. I think Bill had it exactly right. They'll pass the government extension. They'll leave Obamacare out on the side of the road and not vote on the defunding. It'll get pushed back to the debt limit, and we'll have this fight again
You're right,
in 2
though.
weeks.
It doesn't get pushed back to next year. 2 weeks from now, we're going to have the same conversation. And it's a bad conversation for them to have.
Let's not forget, the last time we had a showdown on the debt limit, it wasn't when we hit the debt limit that we had a problem. It was a week before we hit the debt limit when we had a credit downgrade because all the markets started going haywire because we were about to hit the debt limit.
And Bill, you know who's going to come out as this gets closer. You're going to have CEOs from Fortune 500 companies. You're going to have Wall Street coming out here saying, guys, now all of a sudden you're not just talking tough. You're playing with fire here. You're screwing with a tenuous economy. This is not a good thing. People aren't lining up, at least those that matter here, for Republicans who want to do this. I got to think you're going to have more GOP defections as this gets closer.
I agree. I think that the Republicans blink. Yeah. I think that they have to. I don't think you can put it over the edge.
All right, everybody, keep this conversation going online. As you've heard from our table here, this situation may at least resolve itself, but only temporarily. It's going to come back on the table, and we want to get your input here. Go to Facebook and Twitter and sound off shutdown threat. Are Republicans acting, as the word of the day was today, as extortionists, or do you support their positions? When we come back, we're going to focus on the key players in the debate and how they can turn lemons into lemonade. We talked about John Boehner and the president here. That and much more after this.